Don't forget, if you're on, if you have Amazon Prime, you use Amazon Prime, you can subscribe on Twitch and it doesn't cost you a dime. Pow. It's just it's a good way to help out the show. You can also gift subs and memberships and all that kind of stuff. You can become a Patreon supporter, patreon.com/HalSparks, whatever. And if you can't, you can thank the other people who do and enjoy the show because I'm trying to lift some of your spirits. All right, here we go. Saw a car with a light moving around, so I thought it was a cop. Then noticed a car parked in front of my house. See this guy get out. His light, don't light still on. Couple minutes, I opened my door blinds. The guy was trying to break into my car. I yelled, what the fuck? Yelled at my husband to wake the fuck up. Someone is trying to break into my car. He took off with his headlights off. I've slept maybe 2 hours. I'm sorry, Anita. That's terrible. I recommend getting a couple of cameras. Wi-Fi enabled cameras, battery operated best. Put them in the trees near where you normally park, not just at the building. That helps. Also, rig your car to explode. No, I'm kidding. So it's a car. Even if he took it, you'll get it back. You're fine. All right, now, sure. We saw the drunkest take. Now, can we see the most miserable take? I don't know what this fucker's laughing at, but if he has any sense at all and he's a normal human being, he's laughing at him. And this guy. We shall see. This is another object shot down in American airspace. And Greg Kelly is not liking it and is very confused because
this weird new tool is quickly becoming the most popular tool for gardeners in 2023. It combines all.
Well, I can confirm that the Department of Defense was tracking a high-altitude object over Alaska airspace in the last 24 hours. The object was flying at an altitude of 40,000 feet and posed a
much higher than a party balloon would be able to reach, just in case Glenn Beck has tuned in late.
Reasonable threat to the safety of civilian flight. Out of an abundance of caution and at the recommendation of the Pentagon, President Biden ordered the military to down the object, and they did.
Wow, hear that? How decisive. Ordered the military to down that object the moment it touched Alaska. That's.
Why didn't they do it with the other one? Because the other one was at 60,000 plus feet and didn't pose a threat to civilian air traffic, and this one did? Fuck off.
Joe Biden, right? Really, really decisive. But wait a second. They said he was decisive last week when he let the damn thing fly all the way through the country.
Yeah, that was, it didn't fly through the country. It was 60,000 feet up. Also, it posed no threat when it finally landed. That's what you do. That's what you want. I mean, I get it. I'm sorry. I'm making assumptions. That's what you would want out in the audience. That's what I would want. What Greg Kelly wants, of course, is shrapnel-coated and Ebola to land in, a guy's barn while he's shoeing horses and, cave into his head and start 28 days later.
Right? That was, we were told, decisive as well. It was decisive, all right. What's really going on here? I don't know. What's really going on? We don't know. Huh? I don't even believe it. Was it a balloon at this point? Probably a helicopter. Probably a hypersonic helicopter. Bring in the experts, please. Blaine Holt, former Brigadier General in the Air Force, U.S. Deputy Military Representative to NATO, Newsmax contributor, and Fred Fleitz, Senior Fellow at the America First Policy Institute, former Chief of Staff at the National Security Council under President Trump. You guys in the intro.
The America First Policy Council, which most of the time drums up business for weddings at Mar-a-Lago now.
Shows in the titles. You're amazing. So impressive. Fred, first to you. Is this thing from China, and your overall reaction?
Look, I'm a former CIA analyst, and I don't like to draw conclusions on issues like this without all the facts. I think it's reasonable to assume.
Excuse me. You have to back up because Glenn thinks that if it makes Trump look bad or makes Biden look good, you're supposed to draw those conclusions, whether you have all the facts or not. And he also believes that the CIA draws conclusions without any facts in general. So he's of two minds and at the same time of no mind about the entire thing.
Assume that it might be a Chinese balloon, but we know that this was smaller. It wasn't maneuverable. It was at a lower altitude. And that's why a lot of experts are saying right now it may not have been a Chinese balloon. It may have been actually a weather balloon. And I heard Dick Morris say on a great panel earlier, it seems to him that Biden is ready to shoot at the hip. He's so worried about his reputation. Was it necessary to shoot down this unidentified balloon over northern Alaska where it didn't pose a threat to anyone? I have many questions about this.
Yeah, I have many questions as well. I'm sure the audience does as well, right, chat room? You've got questions. I think the biggest one would be would these three on this panel be so charitable had this balloon or whatever it is floated at 40,000 feet into civilian air traffic and either caused a wreck or went across the country in a similar fashion? Would they have been okay with that? I think they would have, right? That makes sense.
Yeah, look, to me, it confirms, General Holt, that they know, even though everybody denied it, that they totally screwed up last week. And this is an effort to compensate.
No, the other thing was at 60,000 feet. This one's at 40.
Please, sir, your thoughts.
Yeah, I have to agree with Fred here. We don't know what it is. I from a just abundance of caution is the watch buzzword of the day. I would definitely be postured to see more things from China. I would assume this is from China until we know for sure it's something else. The Chinese are not answering our phone calls from a Defense Department level, and to your point, Greg, you're exactly right. The messaging out of Washington is so incongruent, so in conflict, not believable, not plausible. And it's really this credibility in the messaging that I find very alarming, because these are very serious events.
Right. Almost so serious that you wouldn't want to talk about them if you knew it would tip China off to what you were aware of and what you weren't aware of.
Do me a favor. I want to show you General, I think his name is Ryder.
Yeah, don't check before the show. It's not important. You're doing the show. You have a prep meeting before you have your guests coming on. You know the topics you're going to discuss. Your staff / assistant / chat GPT, whatever they leave you with at Newsmax. I know it's pretty bare bones over there, but they run you through the stuff, and they probably put it on a piece of paper right in front of you.
He's a one-star Air Force general, and he spoke today. He was asked a question. Well, here, let's go ahead and play it.
Yeah, I don't remember what he said.
Doesn't NORTHCOM have the authority on its own to shoot down unidentified objects entering U.S. airspace if they pose a threat to civilian air traffic? And if so, then why was the president's authorization required in this case?
Yeah, thanks. So my understanding is it was at 40,000 feet when it was detected and ultimately taken down. The NORAD, NORTHCOM commander, does not have the authority necessarily to take down an object if it's not posing a potential hostile intent or actions. However, given the fact that this aircraft was, this.
All right, listen. What he's engaging in here is not answering the question and filibustering. Okay, he doesn't. He goes on for 3 minutes and doesn't answer the question.
Well, we'll just take your word for it since you picked the fucking clip and you cut him off. The point seems to be that they have direct ability if they see an aircraft flying in with, they believe, intent on a speedy mission. Like, you don't have to call the president if there's a bomber on a strafing run or a fighter aircraft or something flying into the country. They don't have to ask, and everybody knows it. They warn the vehicle, whatever it is, and then they shoot. That they're allowed to do that without calling the president. This thing, because it was drifting with the wind and had no form of propulsion, becomes a question for civilian air and becomes a question for the FAA and other stuff. It is not a direct military threat, so no, they've got to ask. Do you want us to do the cleanup, or do you have something else to do? Do you guys understand that you can maybe you can divert traffic around it because you guys know what it is? It's just stupid.
My question to you again, General. Does he have the authority, the NORAD commander, who's a 4-star general, to shoot down a weather balloon if it gets in the way of our planes?
So he has the authority to operate within the rules of engagement that the president gives him. And so if the president has not given him the ability to operate freely like that under certain criteria, then he does not have that ability, and he must come.
There you go. We don't want everybody to go off half-cocked. So if you see something and you're concerned about it, ring us up. We'll take a look and we'll let you know. That's why we have civilian control of the military in this country. It's one of the things that makes it great.
Contact the president and request authorization to do so.
Yeah, you can't do that to Glenn. You just fucked up his whole argument, dude.
It changes from administration to administration.
Well, Fred.
Yes, like in the Trump administration, where they didn't have the go-ahead to shoot them down, and he didn't even care to check and see if there was anything flying over the country in the first place. So, no harm, no foul. It's like the Jim Jordan doctrine.
And I am convinced that they were looking for an opportunity, and let me show you what I like in this too, okay? It's like a kid going fishing, right? And the fish is the balloon, and the dad is China, and the little kid is Joe Biden, okay? That's kind of how I see this. This was a setup so Joe could catch a fish. So Joe could...
So the kid didn't really catch that fish, is what you're saying? Or the dad told everybody that the kid didn't really catch that fish? The kid caught the fish, and the dad is a drunk, and he mistreats his little son. Let's just call him Greg. And that kid grows up with a lot of scars. And one of the biggest ones, of course, is the time he went fishing with his dad and he caught a big fish, and his dad told everybody that he was actually the guy who caught the biggest fish. And then he took the fish and he cooked it, and he wouldn't even let you keep it as a pet because you don't have an aquarium the size of a bathtub. And it was too big. That's what he said.
Look tough. I don't know if it was China. Maybe it was Ron Klain or whoever took the job. But I think this was a setup on purpose to make him look good, although he doesn't fool us. Fred, what do you think?
Yeah, Fred, do you think the military is just advising the president about things moving into our airspace, and he's ordering them to shoot them down for PR at this point? And then the Canadians are in on it.
I think that's right. My guess is that the military reported this balloon to the White House and didn't want to shoot it down. But, there are international treaties that allow nations to fly legitimate weather balloons. If it turns out that this is a weather balloon from a country other than China, I mean, this administration will be embarrassed against.
No, they won't. They didn't shoot it down because it was a weather balloon or because it was supposed to be a spy balloon. They shot it down because it was within this an unsafe range of civilian air traffic, and it was drifting towards north to south, towards Alaska, towards Canada. That's how the winds would have carried it into greater and greater and greater traffic. That's why they shot it down. They didn't shoot it down because they thought it was spying. They didn't shoot it down. They didn't give a fuck. Didn't matter. The other one was 60,000 feet up. This one's at 40.
So I wonder how much forethought.
Smack it up. Flip it. Rub it down. Oh, no.
Went into this decision to shoot the balloon down to try to score Biden some PR points.
And you know what? I got to get you guys on Joe Biden. 4 appearances in front of the media, 2 sit-down interviews, so 6 altogether. And he assiduously avoided criticizing, being remotely critical of China. And it says to me, look, if the guy's not compromised, I don't know what's going on. The Chinese...
Well, I think we're settled, right? That you don't know what's going on. I think that would be it. Because if he was compromised, we wouldn't have the AUKUS agreement, the CHIPS Act wouldn't have happened. He's got a new executive order. Have I showed you that, guys, yet? I haven't showed you that one. New EO China more. Well, it'll be in here. Okay. Yeah, here you go. This is how compromised Biden is. You want to see just how compromised he is? Yeah. White House narrowing executive order on China investments. The Biden administration is leaning towards making its executive order on U.S. investments in China more focused and targeted than some of the earlier suggestions. Why it matters. Imposing new controls on U.S. companies and investors looking to develop and support Chinese projects will mark another escalation in the U.S.-China relationship. Administration officials also want to ensure that allies are fully consulted, which may mean a final executive order is several months away. The goal is for the executive order to serve as a cornerstone for any future regulations on outbound transactions. Driving the news, National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan held a meeting with key cabinet cabinet secretaries in mid-December on how to improve the draft executive order. Janet Yellen asked for more time to work through some of the potential implications with partners and allies. Treasury officials have been soliciting feedback from think tanks, as well as the private sector and the financial services industry, Semaphore reported in December. Those conversations are part of a broader administration outreach effort to gather input from stakeholders, lawmakers, and subject matter experts, officials told Axios. The intrigue. Officials are unlikely to unveil the new executive order before Secretary of State Tony Blinken makes his first visit to China, currently penciled in for February. But a U.S. official stressed that Blinken's trip and this potential executive order are not related. That's because we are decoupling from China, and that is well underway. What we're watching. While the final language hasn't been approved, it appears that the executive order will focus more on quantum computing, artificial intelligence, and semiconductors, and not include biotech or battery technology. The bigger picture, because we're not sharing with them at all, nobody's bothering. And battery technology, I guess, is just throwing, Elon Musk a bone? What were the big picture? Russia's war in Ukraine, the pandemic-induced supply chain disruptions, and China's more aggressive behavior in the Western Pacific has led to a new bipartisan consensus that the U.S. should do more to choke off China's military and technological growth. The Biden administration has taken several explicit steps to check Chinese ambitions in artificial intelligence and quantum computing with the clear aim of slowing the development of China's military capabilities. Last October, President Biden imposed expansive restrictions on the kind of semiconductor technology and equipment that can be shared with China. An analyst with the Center for Strategic Studies described the new policy as strangling with an intent to kill. Again, I put to you, everybody in the I think Joe Biden is compromised by China crowd. If China paid Biden $1 billion to be treated like this, I hope they were wearing a gimp hood when they got fucked.
Seem to have something on him. General, did you notice that there is not one harsh word about China from Joe Biden? Sure, he yelled Xi's name during the State of the Union.
That's pretty harsh. Name me one world leader that would like to trade places with Xi Jinping right now.
But there really was nothing critical. After they did what they did, I found that very odd.
Yeah, it's completely unnerving. And what's more unnerving is in the media we see everybody going, well, China's now upset and they're planning to have a response for us. They should be worried about our response. And what we should be talking about now, and the president included, is what is our relationship to China and how do we start to decouple that relationship?
We already are. What the fuck do you mean start to decouple? The decoupling is underway. Did you not listen to me? I was just talking. Hold on. If I may. A sea change. Biden reverses decades of Chinese trade policy. Forget tariffs. Biden's actions to crack down on Beijing's tech development will do more to hinder the Chinese economy and divide the two nations than Trump ever did. This is Politico. By the way, they're not, that doesn't mean they're fans. Here's Foreign Policy Institute. Biden is now all in on taking out China. The U.S. president has committed to rapid decoupling, whatever the consequences. Those guys aren't particularly fond either. Seriously. Fuck it. What do these guys fuck? I mean, this isn't like you don't even have to do a deep dive to know this. Shit.
In an appropriate manner where our security interests are threatened. Case in point, the southern border and the fentanyl cruising across it every single day, killing Americans.
Well, I see. So the idea that we pressed and got concessions from the Chinese about their production of fentanyl. So they're just sending the precursors now to Mexico, and the cartels are making it there. And we're catching a lot of it because of that. Because it's no longer coming in at the ports in giant ships that are in a big hurry to go someplace. They're coming across the southern border, by the way, largely in the possession of American citizens.
All right, bottom line, and I think we're getting closer and closer. So I want to know if there should be a war, U.S. versus China, and I know this is very simplistic, but...
Yes, most of the things you say are simplistic, Greg.
Does America win that war?
Yes.
There are a billion variables, but Fred, you first.
I think it depends how you put it. Now, right now, there have been war games that China would lose a war trying to take Taiwan, but both China and the United States would suffer enormous casualties. But that situation is going to change over time as the Chinese army and military and navy gets larger and more capable, and we don't invest in our defenses. So,
by the way, anybody see anything in recent years that says, quote, we don't invest in our defenses? Like, how do you not punch yourself in the fucking face when you say that? Considering how much we invest in defense. Secondly, I found some web results. Sorry. Hey, Siri, stop. I don't know why she apparently thought I was talking to someone else. There's this idea, like, the Chinese would lose 1 million soldiers in a day. They would lose the fight for Taiwan in 3 days. The Russians have an advantage going into Ukraine in that there's land. You can drive tanks across it. Do you know there's only 2 months of the year where the weather is favorable for an attack on Taiwan? Do you know that? April and October. The rest of the time, it's either the seas are too choppy, there's typhoons. It's just terrible. Again, you know how we've been talking about like the winter in Ukraine and how it slows things down and mushy ground makes it hard for tanks and blah, blah, blah. Okay, 2 months. If you miss April, you got to go in October. If you don't go in October, next April. We know this. They know this. The Taiwanese know this. The only option they have is to tell everybody get in a fishing boat with knives and just start stabbing Taiwanese people. It's not happening.
Maybe in the short term, China would not win a conflict, but I'm worried where this is going, given the current trajectory.
Asshole, he's not talking about a little fidget. He's talking about all-out war between the United States and China. Fuck.
All right, very quickly, General, who wins?
You got to keep it from going nuclear. Nobody wins in that scenario.
Yeah.
The worry that I have is that we would clobber China because we are that good, and they're not that good with combined arms and joint operations. And if they get pushed into a corner, do they go to that nuclear place? And that's our fear for all of humanity.
Yeah, that's the mutual assured destruction umbrella that Russia uses as well. If we kick their ass too hard, they'll use nukes. By the way, the super lefty that gave Russia nukes because they thought the world would be less dangerous if more people had them. Nice job. Nice job.
General Holt, Fred Fleitz,
both of you. Yeah, I don't feel any better about this. It's just, I mean, on the ride home on the bus, I'm barely going to be able to hold my fudge. You're watching Hal Sparks Mega Worldwide. So far, 2 ignorant and panicked takes.